Monday, October 2nd. This is the end of the day SPY recap, first trading day of the week and the first trading day of the new month. And today we end up with a two down day that took out the low of the previous day and actually reached its first immediate target. Closed a little bit green on the day, so we will see what that means for tomorrow going forward. We held the midpoint below the midpoint of the prior day, and the prior day was red, so you were kind of anticipating, just given the red reversal look of this day, that you'd test the low of that day sometime today, and that's ended up what happening, but we didn't follow through all that much, although we did reach a target. So we will see what, again, that all means going forward as we start a whole new month and quarter and everything else. In terms of the weekly chart itself, we had a bit of a pause after a bunch of a couple of weeks down. We kind of paused at the end of last week, and now you can see we're chopping around inside of this week. So the question is, as always, week to week, are we going to eventually continue lower and have another two down week, or can this possibly turn into a two up week, which would then project into this gap up in here between the high of this bar and the low of that bar? There's a fair value gap. If should we eventually move higher on a two up week, but we have a long way to go to get there, and we have a long way to go to follow through to the downside. On the monthly chart, we kind of have a big red month in September, so you're kind of anticipating at some point we're going to test that low, but you don't know if it's going to happen early in the month or later in the month, and maybe you end up with an inside month. It's hard to kind of feel like you're going to get a big two up month, but we'll have to see. So that's kind of what you're anticipating. And even on the quarterly chart, we've talked about this, that it ends up being a shooter quarter. But you have 3 months now to kind of hold in here and eventually take out those lows, which you kind of expect somewhere in the next few months. So we'll continue to monitor the bigger picture like that, thinking we're still heading a little lower. And if we do break lower, there are some targets down here. But for now, we're in the weekly chart that's pausing and kind of inside. In terms of today itself, again, like I said, you're below the midpoint of the prior day, so you're not really biased anywhere to the upside. You've never really went or had a chance to go up above the upper, pre-market range. That's between the blue lines here. It didn't start up strong out of there. So you're kind of biased to the downside the whole way. And let's look at how the structure unfolded. Again, between the blue lines was the pre-market range. So you're not doing anything above the halfway point of the prior day, above the, pre-market highs. That's kind of how we look at our buy signals. So you're kind of biased to the downside. The way it unfolded, first bar kind of started up a little bit. Then we had the reversal down, but 2 bars in a row kind of inside. Then you kind of started up a little bit, but then immediately failed. So I could see on this failure bar 3, maybe thinking, okay, that's going to be the trigger to kind of break the intraday lows, the pre-market lows, and yesterday's low. And if you did that, it kind of held in here for another bar, went down, it tested that area, inside bar. So you almost had at that point 45 minutes where it just wasn't going your way if you were trying to hold on for a breakout above here. And I could see kind of on this green bar taking a small little loss or even breaking even and maybe waiting. But again, no real bias at this point. You're just a little confused, in terms of are we failing to go lower, but we're not really heading higher. And, this green bar here kind of led me to believe you were going to take those highs out, but whatever, it's still not necessarily a big uptrend. And what happened was, not bias. Even though you thought you might take out that high, but as it took out that high, then you still below the midpoint of the prior day. You're watching, very next bar failed big, and that's where I bought puts. I shot some video on that to take out the lows of the day. At that point, it was a triple bottom down here. You're thinking of taking out yesterday's low, pre-market low, intraday low, and boom, it went all the way down. And then it reached its purple target, which I discussed was when you broaden out on the 2 down, there's your next target. We hit it, and then at that point, that was all you got on the day, and we bounced up by the end of the day. So it was a nice short trade here to hit one target, pre-market intraday lows, and then the second target, the low of the, on Thursday, I think it was, that was your first target. So that's your kind of trade on the day. And other than that, it was tricky to say if this is going to be its secondary push here, this red bar, even though it did kind of touch those lows or come close to it again, it eventually for 45 minutes failed and started up. So you didn't really get that secondary follow through, but you already hit a target. So that's why once I hit a target, and in this case, 2 targets, I'm not that excited to take another trade to kind of expect that you're going to have a big red bar down to this next target, especially because when I looked at the weekly chart, I know that the midpoint of this buying tail is kind of support down here. That has to be broken to really get the continuation to the downside. That also aligns with the midpoint of, that big Thursday bar reversal. So once you hit that purple target, it's not like you feel strong, like you're going to get a second push down to take that out and go very strongly downside. It could have happened, but it's something, that's why you can see here, even though it tried, it just didn't want to go right for today and started up. So we start now with reference points going into the, rest of the week. We have the open. If we get a 2 up, for example, we kind of anticipate broadening a little higher up here, and maybe for the week we head up. If we get a 2 up and we can't reach that target and fail and come back through the midpoint of this bar, we get excited to go short and then start attacking this area again, because our big picture is still to the downside, but maybe we have to get an inside week here. Let's say we expect things to head a lot lower because of the month and the quarter and everything else. Who's to say you can't get an inside bar here, then maybe try to go up and hit your inside target, but fail in this gap, and maybe it takes 3 weeks into the month before you turn lower and start lower. Maybe it happens right away where we head up tomorrow, can't hit our target, and then come back through the midpoint of this bar. So as long as we kind of stay through, above the open of the week, and let's say we start up tomorrow, then we could be biased and look to take out some of those targets, maybe look to fill some of these gaps up here. We'll kind of judge what happens, but you'll go with the flow to the upside, but be excited on any failures to the downside. So that's what we're going to start looking for now, is day to day, price action that relates to the open and the pre-market range, but know that even if we head up, we're excited about failures to the downside, and if we head down, that's all in line with continuity, but we know we have to kind of break through the midpoint of this little bar here to start kind of a 2-down week, and we'll see if that unfolds. So I guess that's the way to view it going forward. Choppy day. You can see with the green bar, maybe the market wants to take out some highs here first, kind of like it did here. That's what happens a lot on these downtrends. You kind of move up, you take out some liquidity, and then the reversals are the really good trades. So maybe it's doing that on a daily basis now. We'll find out tomorrow. If it heads up, we'll expect that target. We can then, if things get really green on a 2-up week, we could expect moves into here, but still always, and then we can go with that flow. But in case if that ever reverses, or if any inside bars fail to break to the upside, getting excited to stay back to the short side. So the best trades I still think are going to be the downside, but there could be some good volatility either way. Until then, we're just going to let price action lead the way.